Good morning and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Our focus this morning is on county government. Milwaukee County Executive Chris Abele proposed a $1.19 billion 2017 budget in early October, and the county is facing a $15 million deficit compared to 2016. Here to talk about that and other important issues is Milwaukee County Executive Chris Abele. How are you?
I'm great.
Good to see you. And as I just stated, you pitched your 2017 budget to the Milwaukee County Board last month and called it a big departure from your past budgets.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a few things
Sure.
in that budget, starting with what you describe as the single most important budget issue.
Right. So the single most important issue in this year's budget is the presence of a vehicle registration fee, or a wheel tax, as some people call it. People will probably be surprised because for 5 years I have never proposed even a tax levy increase. I've vetoed every single levy increase that's come to me, and generally I try not to ask people to pay a dime more than they have to for government services. And in the first 5 years I was able to do that while lowering debt and restoring services. This year, realities have changed. The two big causes are this. Our biggest source of revenue at the county, and this is true at a lot of local governments, is the state. And as your viewers probably know, the state hasn't been great to Milwaukee. We get less here in the county from the state for transit funding than we did in 2009. There's not a lot of things that have gotten cheaper since 2009.
Right.
And so for as long as we can and been able to, we've kept fares flat anyway on the buses. We haven't cut routes, but that's meant we've had to stretch further and further to do it. The other big issue is we've got 4,400 employees, but we have 19,000 retirees, and a lot of them are boomers, and their health care costs are going up by big margins in these for the next 5 years. And when I say big margins, by $20 million, by $30 million.
Wow.
And to put that in perspective, we're getting a couple million more from the state. So that's a lot to keep up with. So to me, it wasn't an issue of whether I like a wheel tax. I don't. Nobody does.
Right.
And what would my ideal solution be? My ideal solution is county taxpayers would get more back from the state of what they pay in, because we don't. But here's the thing. The option, if we don't do a wheel tax, is massive increases in fares, fees, and big cuts in service, and we'll start backsliding into debt. For 5 years, we've lowered our healthcare liability by over $500 million. We've lowered debt, improved our credit. We're on the right track, and I'm not going to let us slide back. So, as I've told a bunch of people, look, it's not an ideal solution, but it's the one legal solution that we've got, and I'm not going to raise fares and make this cost fall on people who need the bus, thousands every day to get to work. They didn't cause this. I'm not going to make things more expensive for them.
Gotcha. And so you've pretty much spelled out the consequences of this not passing. So you're trying to preserve the Go Pass, and then
And
the
avoid
Milwaukee.
huge fare increases.
Yeah.
So figure like $2 up to, say, $7, and that still wouldn't be enough.
Oh, wow.
I mean, when I say it's a crisis, but the other thing is, and I think this is really important to note, I'm not the only person saying this. Milwaukee County has an elected comptroller that has one job and one alone, and that's to be sort of the alarm system for financial crisis. We put that in place 5 years ago, and essentially an alarm to avoid another fiscal Hurricane Katrina like we had years ago. And so for 5 years, that alarm's been silent until this year. He sent a report to the supervisors and me and everyone else saying, urging the supervisors to pass this and saying you need at least $60. Otherwise, you're going to be facing massive cuts, and then you're going to face them again the next year and again until you find some new revenue.
You have some supervisors who have said they're not for the $60 wheel tax, but they'll go for a $30 wheel tax, and others are maybe saying throw that referendum out there for the people to decide. So basically, you just said the comptroller is saying you need at least $60.
You
So
need at
even
least
if they
60.
approve 30, it's not helping your cause.
We're still going to have to make big cuts. We're still going to have to make decisions that no one's going to want to make. You had the Public Policy Forum. When you have the MMAC, the Metropolitan Milwaukee Area Chamber of Commerce, and you also have AFSCME, both urging the board pass this, and you've got the comptroller, and you've got the Public Policy Forum. These are all people who know what they're talking about and do numbers. And as I've told people, I've spent 5 years not raising taxes. I don't think anyone who knows me thinks I would even consider this if it wasn't absolutely necessary. But in this
that puts things into perspective and that's why this show is important,
right.
because a lot of times all we see are the headlines, and
right.
sometimes we're hearing sound bites on the news, but here you're able to really break it down and paint a picture for, the pros, the cons,
right.
the whys, the why nots. And
what happens in this lane, what happens in this lane.
So road maintenance would also play a role in this wheel tax.
Yeah.
So, okay, and we all know how important the roads are, especially after a rough winter. Mm-hmm. So that's all things that people can keep in mind, and we'll just see what happens, because this is actually something that the Board of Supervisors, they kind of talk about it back and forth for about 6 weeks. So we're rolling up on the time that they need to make a decision, and it's possible they could make a decision by the time this airs. So it will be interesting to see how things fare out. But other key things that you mentioned in your budget proposal for 2017, you've mentioned that property taxes have remained flat. Mm-hmm. You want to raise the minimum wage for county employees to $15 an hour over 5 years.
Yep. And actually, just today, I think it was today, the board passed a different version of the same thing. Mm-hmm. Essentially the same idea. It gets us there a year later than what my proposal does, but I'm just happy that we're getting there. And what's the takeaway? We agree on this. Okay. And so what does that mean? That means for county employees who are making less than that, they're they're on their way to a better wage. And for certain contractors that are working, that the county contracts with, they have to follow the same policy. Okay. But that's part of lifting up opportunity and wages.
Yeah, and you're calling for more money for employment programs in neighborhoods like Sherman Park that, of course, witnessed the riots over the summer. What type of employment programs are you speaking of? Is that like the mobile units that are going to different areas?
The mobile units are the state agency, WIDA. We have a great partnership right now, the county does, with Employ Milwaukee, which is their workforce, called Uplift Milwaukee. We started it last year. It's targeted at the highest need zip code, so 53206 and around that area. And we've had such success with this. The jobs that we've placed, the average starting salary has actually been over $15 an hour. So this isn't just a transitional or a summer job. I mean, these are good jobs. And so when the program works well, I like to do more of it. So in the budget, we're expanding that program.
That's good.
We're expanding a lot of our workforce training that we do both through child support and at the House of Corrections. The House of Corrections now, we're doing more than just teaching skills and employment and resume and all that stuff while people are at the house. We have people who are actually getting jobs before they get out. So they get employment and they've got a job immediately. And boy, you talk about lowering recidivism. I mean, someone's got a job and they're on track. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And I'm excited about that.
That's good to hear. And you want to invest $665,000 to Milwaukee neighborhoods with the highest poverty rates and career development at the Boys and Girls Clubs in Sherman Park. Is that kind of along the lines of what you just spoke of?
It is, yeah, helping transition. It's a great organization, the Boys and Girls Club,
Absolutely.
As you know.
Yeah, and the public, they've actually had a chance to give their input with different gatherings on how they feel about mainly this wheel tax. So in your opinion, what's your...
Well, actually, you kind of summed it up before. When people, if you just say, hey, what do you think about a wheel tax?
Everybody's like, no. Right.
But if instead you say, okay, here's the two choices. Either we have a wheel tax or We have bus fares going to, say, $7 from 2, and route cuts and service cuts and, falling behind on road and capital maintenance, and that keeps happening every single year until we find some new revenue. So people should be clear, it's not wheel tax or nothing. It's, the only form of new revenue we can do versus a whole lot of cuts and fare hikes that nobody is going to like.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the thing is it's important to be able to give the public the opportunity to voice their opinion. So they at least feel like somebody's hearing how they feel about different things. So that, of course, is always a good thing. But is there anything else in this 2017 budget that you are feeling extremely strong about that you'd like to see take place?
There is one, probably one of the other big issues is everybody's been following Lincoln Hills. We've been working and recently a lot more productively with the state on, as fast as we can, responsibly can, just getting out of the practice of sending any of our Milwaukee kids up to this state facility.
Right.
And we have in the budget a little over a couple $1 million for a new step-down facility here, closer to home, so we could have better oversight of the kids, better programming, and we know that means lower recidivism. And we're not necessarily saying this is even an end point. Our point is we're not going to wait till we get a new building and a facility built. We're right now going to do better for the kids. And these are Milwaukee kids going up to 3.5 hours north of here.
Yeah, and when you're talking about kids, they still need that connect with their family members. And so to have something here within the city boundaries really makes a lot of sense. So you'll have to keep us up to date on that. Feel free to come back and tell us. But the last time you were here, as we wrap up, we had a lengthy discussion about the Opportunity Schools and Partnership Program. Quite a bit has changed since that conversation. MPS is no longer required to participate in the program, and that's good news, right?
Yeah, so what happened is the state changed the standards by which they measure all schools. And so by the new standards, none of the schools at MPS would be applicable or eligible for this program. I don't think anybody believes that when the state changed the standards, all those schools suddenly got magically perfectly better. But that said, I was really heartened to read of what looks like a really aggressive plan that Dr. Drivers introduced, which actually includes a lot of elements that are somewhat similar, focusing on the schools in MPS that are the most problematic, having aggressive turnaround plans for each of those schools, different hiring plans and abilities at those schools. The way I look at it, what matters less to me is how we get there. What matters to me is we have to do better. We all agree on this by the kids that we're educating. We have to. It's the single highest investment and highest return investment any society can make is educating. Kids are 25% of now, but they're 100% of the future. So.
You got that right. So it's always interesting to get your take on all the different things that's going on, and I know you are extremely busy, so I really appreciate you coming by and pretty much helping us better understand everything that you've proposed, and we'll see what happens.
We will.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Andrea.
Milwaukee County Executive Chris Abele. And to keep up to date with everything taking place with county government, you can visit milwaukee.gov. When we return to Our Issues Milwaukee, we'll meet a member of the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors. One of the board's major responsibilities is to adopt the annual county budget. So we'll talk to Supervisor Marcelia Nicholson, who represents the 5th District, right after this.